Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, fantastic to be here. I was off last week, so maybe that means more people show up because I was off last week. Maybe not. We're middle summer, so we're super sleepy and slow right now. But for everybody, as you're jumping on to this session, the warm and fuzzies are always great. You can see me, you can hear me. Let me know where you're visiting from, and just know that we come into all these live sessions with a topic like, is it risky to switch jobs right now? But it's also a general Q&A. I try to show up for the community once a week, and I'll take some weeks off in here. I'll probably have about 40 to 45 live sessions this year, so definitely want to show up for the audience. And in that sense, we just need to cover everything, so let's do that. So as we're hopping in and diving into this session, if you've been to any of these live sessions before, you have a little bit of a sense of how I operate. I'm going to go backwards before we go forwards. I'll pitch my services, and then boom, we're into the session. And the goal is always to go for an hour. And we'll just see, because the audience, the audience, will dictate how that happens or whether that happens. So yesterday's video, it's not going to get a lot of views. Okay. It's just the reality. And by the way, like the audio on yesterday's video, I don't know what the heck happened, but it's a little low. So you're going to have to turn up the volume. It sucks, but it's out there. And so we'll just keep it as is. But yesterday's video is all about using LinkedIn recommendations as a networking tool. And nobody's looking at those recommendations. Nobody's scrolling down to the bottom. That's not what it's about. It's about your ability to create a list of your target companies and specifically find that Sue Smith works at Google. It's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know Sue Smith was at Google, and I worked with Sue Smith, and Sue is great. And writing a proactive, unsolicited recommendation for Sue. I cannot speak to how valuable that is and how easy it is. And I don't know, I just go on to so many LinkedIn profiles where they have no recommendations. And especially a lot more profiles where they've never given a recommendation. So watch yesterday's video. It's short. Again, a little bit of a volume hiccup that I didn't even notice till today. So it's a little low. So you just have to turn up the volume a little bit, but it's a screen share. So I kind of walk through it for you, and it should be super helpful. So for everybody here, and hi, Liz. For everybody here, if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com, and it's a career coaching business. So we have a software. The software is killer. And by the way, it's free. We give you a free trial, and we kind of are running a freemium model. After your free trial expires, we want to keep that open and free. We're working on tweaking that. So why wouldn't you try it out for free? Your competition isn't. They're not going to do it. They're not going to go in and practice. You should be practicing. And if you want to hop in and see the value of the tool, we give you everything for free in that free trial. So get after it. I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, one-on-one career strategy. That's LinkedIn and resume. We still have that great interview mastery course. I've lowered the price of that course just to make it a little bit more accessible now that I have the app as well. And I'm kind of continue to speak to this, but these live sessions the future of these live sessions are an unknown. And the future of the actual coaching component of the business is the unknown. The software is my primary focus, which is why you see this fun little banner at the bottom. I'm trying to grow that business. And so I don't know how long these live sessions will go, but I'll do them as long as people keep showing up, and I feel like it's going to be valuable for my business. 4 minutes in. Okay, I don't like to really go more than 4 or 5 minutes without the warm-up before we start to dive in. So, okay, for everybody here, is it risky to switch jobs right now? That's going to be the primary conversation when we have our downtime, and it's the summertime, so we're sleepy, so we'll probably talk about it. All questions. Everything's on the table. Throw it my way. Even just say hi, where you're visiting from. And it's not just questions, right? The community, this is a community-driven live session. Oftentimes, there's going to be insights from you, the community, stuff I wasn't aware of. I can't keep track of everything. I can barely keep track of myself. So bringing that good data to it's going to be helpful. Let's dive in. Hey, Liz, scarcity works. Been thinking of you. Good to have you here, Liz. Let's help you out with everything you need help with today. With all the tech layoffs, it seems very hard to find something, being ghosted a lot. What's your recommendation for PGMs nowadays? Well, here's the beauty. Uh, I still love that role, and I feel like that role is a little bit AI insulated just because people still like communicating with other humans. And so, like, obviously, so much of program management is leadership without authority. And yeah, there's going to be parts of the process that you can automate with AI, but like ultimately at the end of the day, forcing and bringing people together, that's a human item. And so I love that role from a safety standpoint. And I think it's a good one. Now, if you are trying to find a program manager job these days, and by the way, for anybody just curious, PGM is typically program manager. Um, it just distinguishes between product manager, PM, or project manager, also kind of sometimes written as PM. So much of this is going to be networking. It's like, you've probably heard that a million times, but your ability to network with hiring leaders, hiring managers, people in like or similar roles is going to be just absolutely critical to your success. And so build a really strong networking strategy on LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn, it's a give first model, right? So like you're reaching out to other program managers, you're giving them cool articles, cool videos, sharing value, not asking for anything. Build your network of program managers because yeah, just putting in an application is going to be really challenging. I will say also the cool thing about program management, a couple of other quick tips and tricks is um, you don't have to have a program manager title to actually be quite effective and good at that job. And oftentimes, the program managers that I hired didn't have that title. And it's okay to change that title on your resume or LinkedIn profile if that's essentially your job function, is to call yourself a program manager. And then on the application, if it's like some sort of like business analyst, but you're more like a program manager, put your actual title on the application. But you don't have to have that title to actually qualify for a program manager role. Bit of a tangent. Hope that helps. Okay. My question is, I'm finding errors, some minor, some more consequential to understanding content. If I organize a few in a spreadsheet, where to find, how to fix it, screenshot, is this a gift? Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a gift. And people have highlighted like, hey, you did this or you did that. I don't know why it's coming to mind, Liz, but I had a person comment. I did like a Q&A video on something. It was like a behavioral question, and somebody comments and they're like, you didn't really, like, your answer wasn't really answering that question. I went back and I reviewed my video and I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. Like, that video, like, I gave an answer and it was a good answer, but it wasn't strong enough or correlated, have enough correlation to the actual question that was being asked. And I appreciated that. And I called myself out and I was like, look, I think you're right. I think my answer could have been more relevant to the question. So as a content creator, I always want that feedback, Liz. And by the way, like, I always want feedback. Like, give me feedback now on anything I can improve. I constantly know I can grow and improve in every area of my life. And like, I look at myself that I'm in the 1% of knowledge. So I need that other 99%. So always give it to me. Right. So just being really open to feedback. Liz, if somebody doesn't like that feedback, that's on them, not on you. Now, the one piece of advice, whenever we're giving feedback, it's all I based. I experienced this. I saw this. This is the way I felt about it. This is what I noticed. So it's an I. It takes away all the pokiness, because if it's like, you did this and you did this, it's like people do not respond well to that. It's a great communication tactic too. I is much less pokey than you. I hope that helps. Howdy, thanks for being here. Recently, I applied for a role that was my dream job. This is my second application, and I was notified within 180. Notified within 180 days, but try for another open role. Is this a good sign? Just an auto message. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I'd just be guessing, Liz, at best. But sounds pretty auto generated to me personally. But I'm skeptical of the application process in general. As you know, I just don't love it, and I think that sometimes if we see a dream job pop up, we got to just go for it and apply. I understand that, but as you know, I'm gonna encourage everybody to really limit the number of applications. It's a losing battle applying to jobs in 2025. Hey Jeff, curious on your thoughts on how agentic browsers like GPT agent is going to change tech significantly, right? Like, and I am it's really hard to talk about this, right? Like because it sounds very gloom and doom, but I just don't see a future reality where humans are really doing the jobs. Why would we? We put a lot of risk being humans, right? Like where AI will just kind of take over and do everything. So I think with these agentic browsers, like it's really going to change the landscape in terms of what's possible, right? And I know I'm being like very vague, but like we could really dive in, and this is a subject I can just go off on a huge tangent. So I'm knowingly like keeping myself in in line on track, but the tech landscape is going to change so fast, and I think the biggest challenge that we want to be talking about is like there's no guardrails, and the fact that there's no guardrails like people are like, you can't talk about the gloom and doom, but AI has already shown that it will not be shut down, meaning that it's willing to take any step to keep going. And that's already happening now in July of 2025. So with all these companies racing to the top, um, there's just no way that we're ever going to be able to shut this down because AI is simply smarter than us, and it's going to put protection mechanisms in place on the back end and create its own protection mechanisms to not be shut down. And that's scary. Again, if anybody's seen some of this, like AI has literally like they tried to shut down the major AI platforms just to see like test it, and it wouldn't shut itself down. So um, yeah, again, I said I wouldn't go on a tangent, but there I go. There I go. I find it to be incredibly fascinating and interesting and a little scary. So it's definitely a subject we should be talking about. Thanks, Stephanie. I think I'm kind of like thinking about the roadmap for the rest of the year in these live sessions, and I think maybe I'm pretty good to go almost every week for the rest of this year, minus maybe one or two other weeks. But I feel like as we hit this back half, probably definitely going to be able to, probably definitely, that's funny. I'm going to be able to get in another 20 or so live sessions. Liz, I didn't get 102. You're finding errors. Yeah, Liz, I'm not sure because this was the question I saw, and then this was the next question I saw. So if I missed one, yeah, let me know. What are your thoughts on joining startups for a customer engineer type of role in this economy? Yeah, I mean, I like CE roles, but again, I always, anytime I say that, I want to back that up or validate that with my narrow lens. I mean, I love people who are technical and can speak to non-technical people like me. Now, some people would argue that I am technical. I would argue against that strongly. But when we look at my overall client base, I mean, customer engineers are, if they're not number one, they're number two. So I work with a ton of customer engineers and just kind of those hybrid technical to client facing roles. And I love talking with people who can dumb down technology for people like me and explain it to somebody who has is a little bit more on the business side of things. And it doesn't mean that technical people aren't, but I still like those roles because you're going to have to deal with people like me on the client side, whether that's like CEOs or COOs who may not be as technically strong, but you can speak to why it's so beneficial. And then I like the CE role at a startup because you're probably going to be one of one or one of two and just have an ability to have massive impact and grow that business. So I like it. Clarification. I was asking if giving a few bugs is seen as a gift or doing work for free and maybe desperate. No, I mean, my whole model is value, value, value. Give, 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 give. And by the way, like, okay, let's call it out. I'm trying to build my app on the B2B side, and I have had to give massively since I've started that process, and it's yielded almost nothing. Am I going to stop because of that? No, of course not. I'm going to give and I'm going to give and I'm going to give value and I'm going to overdo it and I'm going to over deliver every single time because I know the value of one big B2B deal changes my whole life. And so all I'm going to do is give value, over give, and it's not doing work for free. It's trying to get the attention of your target audience and really stand out from your competition because, like, let's call it what it is. If you're applying to 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 jobs a week, that's lazy. That's not hard work. I can hit the easy apply button. I can throw my resume out to a bunch of companies. That's not going to actually move the needle in 2025, and it's hard feedback, right? But my goal is value, right? And so if my goal is value, I got to tell people, like, don't apply, like, put in the work, because spending an hour crafting a really good message for your target person instead of applying to 10 jobs in that hour, over time, that's going to be a much, much more effective strategy. Is that one person going to pay attention? Maybe not. But then you do it again. And by the way, like, one of the key tips and tricks is it's like 8 times. That's how often people need to hear from you to be convinced that you're the right person. 8 times. It's a lot. So what happens? People do one reach out and they give up. Don't create I like creating target lists. So I'm building out my target 100 list, 100 clients that I want to work with. And then I'm going to be relentless. I'm going to follow up and follow up and follow up with these 100 clients and never stop until they do business with me, because I'm so convinced that I can bring a successful product or partnership to them. And so that's a big part of it, Liz, too, is just the consistency and keep doing it and do it over and over and over again. And just because you don't hear back doesn't mean they didn't see value in your message. Guess I'm overthinking. I'll give it a try as a networking strategy. I'm having difficult connecting to anyone related to go-to-market roles in AI. Okay, I want you to try a company called, and let me just look this up and confirm that this is it. I want you to look up a company. I'm actually speaking with the CEO of this company tomorrow, Liz, called Whispered.com. It's whispered.com. This has like off-market go-to-market jobs. Check out that site and see if that helps. By the way, I don't know how I got the royal purple crown icon with #1, but I'm not #1 anywhere, and I'm enjoying this today. Oh my goodness, I I don't see that on my end, but my best guess is that this is a StreamYard add-on, because you've probably made the most comments in my live sessions, and thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, but that would be my best guess, but I wish I was seeing it on my end, so I don't know why I'm not seeing it, but that's cool. So enjoy the crown. Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to keep going. Please keep showing up, and let's gear up for this hiring session in Q3, Q4. Yeah, and so my dev team was kind of like asking me, like, what are the trends? And the trends are like, we're only about where are we at? The 22nd. We're like 3 weeks out of the hiring push really happening. Like it's not September. It really, really ramps up in August. And we're gonna see hiring. And again, like historically hiring has been more robust, but we will see an uptick in the next 3 weeks. And so I just want everybody to be ready for it. And then it stops around Thanksgiving. There's still some lingering push by the end of the year, but the real push will start about August 15th. Yeah, and that's historically how it's been. Love your videos. Thank you for that. I had an interview at Google for an account strategist. The manager didn't move me on to the final round, said it was the hypotheticals, but I felt I did well with the CFAS in scope. Any advice? Yeah, I mean, so yes, I mean, obviously, again, we talked a little bit earlier on about customer engineers. If they're not my number one, account strategists are, and specifically for that role at Google, I kind of work more in the customer engineering field for like multiple companies and different role types. But what I find with these account strategist roles is they definitely are looking for depth when you use the CFAS method. And so, you know, some of the things that I typically see as challenge areas for account strategists are highlighting a specific type of Google advertising product and really diving into how you'd solve the problem with that product. So that's one. A second challenge area that I see with account strategists sometimes is talking through how they would specifically collaborate with their internal stakeholders and what that would look like. Those are a couple of items that show up in the CFAS method consistently where it's just typically the biggest challenge is not enough depth in the solution. Now, of course, I didn't hear your answers. I can't see your answers, so I don't know if this is the case. And it's also important to note that these account strategist roles, like it's a revolving door. It's an entry level role ish. I mean, most of the people going into these roles are kind of the 2 to 5 years of experience. So you're probably going to have another chance. And so just continue to practice as much as you can and be ready the next time an interview comes up. But yeah, unfortunately, without seeing your answers, all my advice is just guessing. Was reading a thread on Anthropic, and a recent SWE candidate mentioned their interview loop was harder than Google. Didn't think that was possible. Okay, so the whole thing about job interviews is like Google interviews are hard. They're hard because they put more emphasis on hypothetical questions than most companies do. And I think that just in reality, I think one of the missing pieces of the puzzle when we talk about interviews is it's all like star method, star method, star method, behavioral questions, behavioral questions. But the reality is that the vast, vast majority of companies will ask hypothetical questions in their process. And so now with Google and with any company, the irony is your interviews are only as hard as your interviewers are hard. So like I reflect back on my Google interviews and I had 5 total. So like I had 3 to get the contract role. I thought all those interviews were super, super easy. Like everybody, all those people I ended up knowing, liking, working with, and they were all just likable people. Then when I went on to conversion, the GCA interview, that person was just very receptive to who I was and how I acted. And then my last interview, I think I've told this story before and I cannot remember her name, but my last interview was like kind of at the time, it was the Googliness and leadership interview at the time. And I interviewed with a woman whose job was to create her own new job every time she got bored, write out the job description and give it to Sergey. That's was in 2013. So it's still crazy to think that that kind of job existed there at that time. And we just had a conversation. So what am I saying, Daphne? I ended up with 5 interviewers that I really connected with, and it felt easy. It didn't feel hard. No, obviously I prepared like a crazy person, right? But like so much of it is this is just perception. Like this person may have had good interviewers at Google and it didn't feel that hard. And then they got to Anthropic and it felt very hard. But the reality is all these companies are going to have different sets of challenges. And I think it is really interviewer dependent to figure out like how hard that day is going to be. But of course, Google historically has been one of the tougher companies to interview at. And I think everybody kind of knows that. You are welcome. Okay. 25 minutes in and out of questions. That's very, very early for us to be out of questions. So I'm going to encourage the audience, come on in and like, let's chat about things. Anything and everything is on the table. Let's kind of just, I'm going to, as comments come in, I'm just going to pause on the comments for just a moment, but please keep them coming. Is it risky to switch jobs right now? Kind of. Yeah, it's kind of risky. Now, look, if you wake up every day and you are absolutely miserable at your job, terrible boss, don't like the position, don't like your teammates, then yeah, like if your mental health is struggling because, and like truly struggling, it doesn't mean we all have to be 100% satisfied in our work, but if your mental health is at risk because you're not switching jobs, then it's a really, really important item. We have to protect our mental health and we have to protect what's most important, which is our time, right? We want to spend our time doing things we enjoy, and not all parts of work are enjoyable, but we want to enjoy at least some of it. And so I do think that there is some risk if you're pretty happy, but like you're considering it right now. There is still some risk of changing. And I think one of the risky pieces of changing jobs right now is like, are you LIFO? And LIFO is last in, first out. And right. And so like kind of understanding as much as we can through as much research as we can do, probably with an LLM, is what is this company's philosophy or policy when it comes to like layoffs or letting people go? Do they typically let the last people in? Do they let them go first, or do they let the older employees go? Like for instance, Google, when they've done most of these layoffs, the vast majority of people who have been laid off are long tenured employees. They're employees who are saying, look, like the product area is failing, or like, we just don't think you can make the cut long term, so we're going to cut you, right? And so that's an important factor. Like, what is this company's policy when it comes to laying off? It's really tricky. I think also, where are we at in our careers, right? Like, as we think about AI and job loss, are we at a place where if we just stayed at our current role or in our current role for like 3 to 5 more years, we'd be financially free enough to retire, or financially free enough to move to a cheaper cost of living area where we could just like literally retire? Because the more we change jobs now in 2025, the more we're at risk of just being automated completely out of the job market. So it's a concept, an item, and risk that I just want people to really keep in mind. And again, it's just so critical that you protect your mental health. And like, I need to speak to that from personal experience. There were many times in my career where I did not protect my own mental health, and I suffered for that greatly because I had people who were like knowingly trying to chop me down and make me feel horrible. And I'm sure many people who are watching this live session have experienced that. And if that's what you're experiencing, well, maybe you look at an internal transfer first and then you look outside the company, because that could be a safer move. I don't play it safe. So I'm kind of trying to give you advice that's a little counterintuitive to how my brain works. But if you are going to stay on the corporate side of things and work for somebody else, I obviously encourage that everybody become an entrepreneur, but I understand that can be challenging and risky. But internal transfers can be, if you're working at a larger company, can be also another path. Okay, great. So this is good. I've been at Apple for 6.5 years and I feel like I'm ready for more. I thought it'd be easy to get into Google due to the experience. I'll keep trying. I might have an offer at a startup this week. It feels risky. Yeah. And so maybe, I think this is a tough conversation. I never want to give my fear is giving bad advice. I mean, I think that so much of what makes a job great it's partially the job, but a lot of it is your direct leader and your teammates. And your direct leader will make or break you 100% of the time. I've worked at some of the worst companies in the world and I had a great leader at a terrible, terrible company. And I've worked for one of the best in the world historically, Google, and I had terrible leadership across the board. I only had one manager that I liked at all. Well, technically two managers that I liked, but they were both short term. The longer term managers I had at Google were not good. I did not care for them. I did not like their style. And of course, as we reflect back, there are always things I could have managed my managers a lot better. So, why am I saying all this? What's your current manager leadership relationship? If that's really, really strong and they're supportive and you like them a lot, then maybe you can have a transparent conversation and say, like, I'm ready for more. And I'm at Apple. We're at Apple. I'm getting interviews. I'm getting interest. And like, I'm taking those interviews because I want to take on more. I like to stay. Is there a possibility to take on more? Now, again, you'd only do that if you really liked your lead. I think with startups, we also just need to think about like, what's the potential of the startup? How much do we believe in that organization to get us to the next step? And then just know that like, there's just very few unicorns, right? Like all these companies are like, this is your equity and it's going to be worth $10 million. And it's like, well, that's not reality. So when you look at startups, I would just say the equity is fake money, funny money. It's counted as zero unless they're getting closer to IPO and those shares can be sold on the secondary market. If they can't, it's not money. That's just my, again, 2 cents and opinion. So I think you have a couple of different unique and interesting paths you can take. I am always willing to go as long as the community would like me to go. At 32 plus minutes, we're rarely out of questions, but it is the summertime. We're a little sleepy. I think we've probably covered, is it risky to switch jobs right now enough? So any additional questions or thoughts? It could be about the job market. We could be talking AI. We could be talking job strategies. We can really chat about anything. And of course, if 33 minutes is our session today, that's great too. I just want to show up and give value. And sometimes that's shorter. We typically go about an hour, but today is feeling like maybe it's going to be a shorter day, and that's okay. It's the summertime, and maybe we're not feeling it today. Okay, here we go, Daphne. Is it important to have the exact title of the role on your resume? For example, do I have to have program manager, project controls, Google data centers on the resume to be picked up by a scan? No, but again, so much of titles is I always like, we understand the world through ourselves, right? We understand the world through our lens because our lens is very unique, and especially when you get to my age, not to be mentioned, you've had like billions of unique experiences, right? Like, and so we kind of see the world through that perspective. And so, what the heck am I talking about? What I'm talking about is my old title. I had this title called Concierge Team Lead. I was a data analyst manager. So, what do you see on my LinkedIn profile? Data analyst manager. What do you see on my resume? Data analyst manager. Because that was my job. I was a data analyst, was doing analytical work and leading a team that also did analytical work. Concierge Team Lead didn't make any sense. The reason why that was the title, Daphne, was because I was leading a team that was supposed to be giving a concierge type experience to CEOs. Ridiculous title, terrible title, right? And so on our resume, on our LinkedIn profile, we can match our current titles and our current jobs or previous jobs to be closer to the role. It's just on the actual application, we're going to want to put the specific title that we had at that company. But that's not lying. That's talking about what was the role we were performing or closer to the role we were performing. It's something I always recommend. And look, you're getting into the interview and you're crushing the interview, then they're going to see that you're a good fit for the role. But having the exact title, I don't think anybody would expect you to have that exact title, right? Like some sort of program manager of project controls or program manager project controls data center, right? Like I don't think anybody expects you to have that exact title. Okay. I think I'll go on a wrap up. Super slow session today, but I appreciate everybody showing up. And just because I'm going into wrap up does not mean that I will not take additional questions. Of course I will. If any additional questions come in, happy to take them. I can't push this enough. You're going to get better for your job interviews if you practice. app.practiceinterviews.com, it's free. So the only person holding you back if you're not practicing is you. And so I just want to tap into that emotion, help you understand that practice is paramount and you don't need to do that much practice to crush your interviews. It's not like it's hundreds or thousands of hours. It's a bunch of hours, put in the work. And by the way, check out the tool. It's free. If you don't like it, no commitment needed. I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy sessions. That's resume and LinkedIn advice, mostly a little bit of networking. Still have our killer interview mastery course, updated last year, all AI built in so that it's not a dated course. And I lowered the price point. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific every Tuesday, new original long form content every Monday. And I'm continuing to try and up my shorts game, even though some weeks it's a little lagging. I totally understand that. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. And I think we're gonna end in a very short live session today. And I just sincerely appreciate everybody showing up as always. We have a fantastic community. I am incredibly grateful and blessed for every one of you. And if you keep showing up, I'll keep showing up as well. And I know today was a super short session, but I appreciate everybody. And let me answer this last question. Is Google next for layoffs this year? Your thoughts? Yeah, I think all these companies are just going to continue to lay off. I think there are definitely roles that we could automate today. I mean, we've talked a lot about in these live sessions, like I think we could totally automate the entire recruiting role right now, recruiting and sourcing. I think AI would do a much, much better job in that space today. So like that's just one department that I think could be completely automated out. And I have a lot of recruiter friends, so like I don't particularly enjoy saying it, but I just think I look at all the steps in the process and all the challenges that people have with recruiting, and AI would like eliminate all those. So I just think that layoffs, it's not a if, it's just a when, and it's just going to be consistent, and it's going to keep happening again and again and again. Edward, thank you for showing up. You always show up, and I appreciate you. Okay, everybody. I think that's it for today. But I'll be back next week, and I'm going to push some shorts this week as well. Have a great day, and I'll be back next week.